Hey, what's up? I'm Pastor Jay, lead pastor of Firehouse Church. We're excited that you joined us for this video blog. We didn't do one last week, but hey, this week we're back on track, so we're excited. Some time ago, several years ago, me and my wife went to H.H. Gregg. I like to shop at H.H. Gregg. And we bought a General Electric washer and dryer, you know, one of those front load washer and dryers. And we took it home, unpackaged it, stood it up, we stacked it, and we proceeded to wash some clothes. And I think we had threw some clothes. I don't remember if we just ran a cycle or if we actually put some clothes in, but we began to use the washing machine. And once it got to the high-speed spin cycle, the washing machine began to go crazy. The thing began to shake vehemently. It was like boom, 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 boom. And immediately, you hit the pause button, beep, and stop the washing machine. And we let it set, and we try it again. And it gets to the high-speed cycle, and things begins to go boom, 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 boom. And we stop it again, and I go and I look at the instructions, and I have overlooked that there is some transportation bolts in the back. I guess it keeps the drum from turning or something while in transport. So we had been running the washing machine with these bolts in there. And, I take the bolts out and the washing machine runs fine, but the drum had been hitting the tips of the bolts, and I think it kind of wore a little bit off of some of them. And but after that, the washing machine worked fine. But what I had done is I had overlooked that. Then oftentimes at Christmas time, we get toys for our kids, and we put them together, and we get to the end, and it doesn't look right, and there's a piece laying over here, and we looked at the picture as a guy to put it together, not read the instructions, which I've tried to give. But we go back and we read the instructions, and we realize that, hey, we missed something, and we have to take some pieces apart to get back to the part we needed to put there. And so we just completely overlooked that there was a part there that we missed. Oftentimes we feel like that in our life. It comes to we get two basketball captains, and it goes through picking the team, and you're the last one picked. You have been overlooked the whole time, and you've felt overlooked. And I think oftentimes we feel that way in ministry. Maybe we feel called to go into youth ministry, or called to be a Sunday school teacher, or called to be play an instrument, or something of that effect. We feel that we're supposed to be used in a certain area of ministry, but we constantly get overlooked. We constantly feel like, we aren't given the opportunity, to show who we can be, to show what we can do. And I want to go to a scripture here, 1 Samuel chapter 16, and starting with verse 1, it says, "Now the Lord said to Samuel," this is from the New Living Translation, "You have mourned long enough for Saul. I have rejected him as king of Israel. So fill your flask with olive oil and go to Bethlehem. Find a man named Jesse who lives there, for I have selected one of his sons to be my king." But Samuel asked, "How can I do that? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." "Take a heifer with you," the Lord replied, "and say that you have come to make a sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you which of his sons to anoint for me." So Samuel did as the Lord instructed. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town came trembling to meet him. "What's wrong?" they asked. "Do you come in peace?" "Yes," Samuel replied. "I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Purify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice." Then Samuel performed the purification rite for Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice too. When they arrived, Samuel took one look at Eliab and thought, "Surely this is the Lord's anointed." So Samuel looks at the first son, and he's like, "Surely this is him." But listen. "But the Lord said to Samuel, 'Don't judge by his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart.'" I think oftentimes that occurs with us. We often look and we judge things or judge the book by its cover, but not by the contents that lie within. And we are often judged by what we show on the outside, or what our accolades and what our awards show or say that we are, but we really don't look at the contents of one's heart. But that's where God judges people. He doesn't look on the outside, but he looks on what's on the inside. the characteristics, what's on your heart. He looks at that, and he judges by that. And oftentimes people will allow people to be put into a position, whether it's at work. Maybe you applied for a job and you got overlooked at that, and maybe it's because their credentials versus what you had, or their resume versus your resume looked better. But oftentimes they get in that job and they really, you would have been better at that, but you didn't get the opportunity. You didn't get the opportunity to prove yourself because you didn't have the 2 years experience. You didn't get the opportunity to prove yourself. And oftentimes that happens in our life. Oftentimes that happens in ministry where it's looked at as, well, this person did this or this person did that. And we overlook. But I want you to understand something, that God doesn't always call the qualified, but He always qualifies the called. He always qualifies the called. So though people has looked at you and told you that you can't do that, you're not good enough, you wasn't raised in the right home, this, that, or the other, you're just always going to be that way. You're always going to be like your dad. You're always going to be like your mom, and you just constantly get overlooked. And people look more at what has happened on the outside than what's on the inside. People has failed to give you opportunity because they don't see things the way God sees them. They don't see what lies within. They only see what lies without. And so let's read on here though, verse 8. Then Jesse told his son Abinadab to step forward and walk in front of Samuel, but Samuel said, "This is not the one the Lord has chosen." Next Jesse summoned Shemiah, but Samuel said, "Neither is this the one the Lord has chosen." In the same way, all 7 of Jesse's sons were presented to Samuel, but Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen any of these." Then Samuel asked, "Are these all the sons you have?" "There's still the youngest," Jesse replied, "but he's out in the fields watching the sheep and goats." "Send for him at once," Samuel said. "We will not sit down to eat until he arrives." So Jesse sent for him. He was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes, and the Lord said, "This is the one, anoint him." Yet he wasn't even invited to begin with, but that's the one God had chosen. That's the one God had picked. Oftentimes, I feel like many of us, we aren't given opportunities based on what people see and what is seen on the outside. But God knows the heart. And just because right now it seems like you are overlooked, just think that maybe God has got you in a preparation process. Because even when David was anointed king, he didn't become king overnight. He had to go through a process. He had to face dangers, tribulations, and trials. He had to go through a process, a preparation process. It didn't take place overnight, but it prepared him. It prepared him for when he was to reign as king, when he was to sit on the throne. It's like Pastor Brian, who used to be the assistant pastor here at Firehouse, and he's now serving at another church. But he talked about this habitude about the big gift. And it's like a child. You don't give a 5-year-old a Corvette. I mean, you can, and one day that's going to be an awesome gift when he turns 16 and he's driving high school in a Corvette. I mean, it's going to be 16 years old, but hey, it's still a Corvette. But, he doesn't, if you were to put him on the road at 5 years old in a Corvette, not only is he endangering others around him, he's endangering himself. And so he has to go through a process. He learns to ride a bike, he learns to ride a 4-wheeler, a dirt bike, and all these things, and he grows on until he gets into place and he has the knowledge somewhat of how to drive that Corvette. And sometimes there's that gift, and that gift is big, and you've got to go through a process in order to be ready for when it's time for that gift to be used. Just the same way you don't give a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old a chainsaw, because they're going to get hurt, and they can hurt somebody else. And so there's a process, and you've got to be willing to remain, and wait and endure through the process. I remember I had a guy that, one of my friends, he was talking to me, and he said he had begun to research on Google, and he had seen this artist, and people come in to look at this artist's work, and he shows them this finished product. He said, but oftentimes people aren't concerned about the finished product. He's like, yeah, I finished this. He's like, I put the finishing touches. I tried so hard, to finish this painting and make it beautiful. He said, but that's not what people what people admire the most. He said, people ask, not about the finished product, but what are you working on now? He's like, people are intrigued by the process. People are drawn to the process. So though it might seem long, there are good things happening in the process. A sycamore tree doesn't go from a seed to a huge sycamore overnight. It has times of soaking up water and being saturated and being fed. But the sycamore tree only becomes what it is because of what's done when it's a small seed. The sycamore tree is only a result of how the seed is nurtured when it's young. I know right now it might seem discouraging to be overlooked, but just know that if God has called you, He will qualify you, and in His time, He will open the door for you that needs to be opened. God bless you.